The charity coordinator's call came on a Tuesday afternoon, and Zara Kelly almost didn't answer because she was elbow-deep in flour at the bakery where she worked. She wiped her hands on her apron and grabbed her phone just before it went to voicemail, tucking it between her shoulder and ear as she continued kneading dough. "Miss Kelly, this is Rebecca from the Heart to Heart Foundation. I'm calling about your registration for the annual charity marathon next month." Zara's stomach flipped with excitement. She had been training for this race for 6 months, ever since her younger sister Emma had been diagnosed with a congenital heart condition that required surgery. The foundation had helped cover costs that insurance wouldn't, and Zara wanted to give back. Running had always been her escape, her therapy, and now it could be her way of saying thank you. "Yes, I'm so excited about it," Zara said, adjusting her grip on the phone. "Wonderful. I'm actually calling because we have a new sponsorship program this year. Local business owners and executives are sponsoring individual runners, and they'll be running alongside their sponsored participant for the entire race. Your sponsor has already pledged $10,000 to the foundation in your name." Zara nearly dropped the phone. $10,000. That's incredible. Who is it? "His name is William Patterson. He owns Patterson Industries, the manufacturing company. He'll be at the kickoff event this Saturday at Memorial Park. You two can meet then and discuss your training schedule leading up to the race." After hanging up, Zara stood in the quiet bakery kitchen, surrounded by the smell of rising bread and her own racing thoughts. Patterson Industries was one of the largest employers in the city, known for producing high-end kitchen equipment and appliances. She had never imagined someone like that would be paired with her, a 26-year-old baker who lived in a studio apartment above a laundromat. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze that made the park feel alive. Zara wore her favorite running gear, black leggings and a turquoise tank top, her dark curly hair pulled back in a high ponytail. She arrived early, nervous energy making her bounce on the balls of her feet as she stretched near the registration tent. "Zara Kelly." She turned to find a man approaching, and her breath caught slightly. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark brown hair that had just enough wave to look effortlessly styled. He wore an expensive-looking athletic shirt and running shorts that showed he took fitness seriously. His jawline was strong, his eyes a striking hazel green, and when he smiled, it reached those eyes in a way that made him seem approachable despite the obvious wealth evident in everything from his watch to his running shoes. "That's me," she said, extending her hand. "You must be Mr. Patterson." "William," he corrected, his handshake firm and warm. "Or Will, if you prefer. Mr. Patterson makes me feel like I should be wearing a suit and sitting in a boardroom." His voice was deep and confident but had a hint of humor that immediately put her at ease. Zara found herself smiling back. "All right, Will. Thank you so much for the sponsorship. That money means everything to the foundation." "I read your registration essay," he said as they walked toward the group gathering for the kickoff speech. "About your sister. How is she doing?" Zara was surprised he had taken the time to read it. Most wealthy sponsors, she assumed, just wrote checks and showed up for the photo opportunities. "She's doing well, actually. The surgery was 6 months ago and she's been recovering beautifully. She's 13 and already talking about trying out for the track team next year." "That's wonderful." The warmth in his voice seemed genuine. "My mother had heart issues when I was younger. I know how scary it can be." They stood together during the speeches, and Zara found herself sneaking glances at him. He listened intently, clapping at the right moments, his posture relaxed. When the coordinator announced that sponsors and runners should exchange contact information and schedule their first training run together, Will pulled out his phone. "What works for you?" he asked. "I usually run at 5 in the morning before work, but I can adjust my schedule." 5 in the morning. Zara tried not to let her shock show. "That's dedication. I've found it's the only time I can guarantee I won't be interrupted by calls or meetings. But seriously, what time works best for you?" "I start at the bakery at 6, so I usually run around 5:30 the day before, but I could do 5 a few times a week." "The bakery?" His eyebrows rose with interest. "Which one?" "Sweet Morning on Maple Street. I'm the head baker there." "I know that place. Their sourdough is incredible." He typed something into his phone. "How about we meet at the River Trail Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 5? That gives us 4 weeks to train together before the race." "That works for me." She gave him her number, and when his text came through a moment later, she saw he had saved her name with a small running shoe emoji next to it. The following Monday, Zara's alarm went off at 4:15 in the morning, and she immediately regretted agreeing to such an early time. But she dragged herself out of bed, pulled on layers against the early autumn chill, and drove to the River Trail parking lot. To her surprise, Will was already there, doing dynamic stretches near a sleek black SUV. "Morning," he called out, his breath visible in the cool air. "Ready to do this?" "As ready as I'll ever be at this hour," she said, setting her water bottle in the holder of her running belt. They started at an easy pace, their footsteps falling into sync on the paved trail. The river beside them caught the first hints of dawn, turning from black to deep blue. For the first mile, they ran in comfortable silence, and Zara appreciated that he didn't feel the need to fill every moment with conversation. "So how did you get into baking?" he asked as they rounded a bend in the trail. "My grandmother," Zara said, her breathing still easy at this pace. "She taught me when I was little. I used to spend summers at her house, and we would bake everything from scratch: bread, pastries, cakes. When I was trying to figure out what to do with my life after high school, it just made sense. I went to culinary school and specialized in baking." "Do you like it?" "I love it. There's something magical about taking simple ingredients and creating something that makes people happy. Every time someone bites into a kvass I made and their eyes light up, it feels worth it." Will nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that. It's not that different from what I do, actually. We take raw materials and turn them into products that help people create their own magic in their kitchens." "Do you like running your company?" Zara asked, curious about this man who had millions of dollars but still woke up before dawn to train for a charity race. "Most days," he admitted. "My father built Patterson Industries from nothing, and when he retired 5 years ago, I took over. It's a huge responsibility, and sometimes I miss the simplicity of when I was just another engineer on the floor solving problems. But I get to employ 3,000 people and support my community, so I can't complain." "You were an engineer." That surprised her. She had assumed he was one of those executives who inherited everything and never got his hands dirty. "Mechanical engineer. Spent 6 years working my way through every department before my father even considered me for an executive position." He's a firm believer in understanding every aspect of a business. They increased their pace for the next 2 miles, and conversation became sparse as they focused on their breathing and form. Zara was impressed that Will kept up with her easily. She had been worried he might slow her down, but if anything, he pushed her to maintain a stronger pace than she usually did alone. As they cooled down with a walk in the parking lot, Will pulled out 2 bottles of some fancy sports drink from his SUV. "Here. This stuff is amazing for recovery." "Thanks." Zara took a sip and was surprised by how good it tasted, nothing like the overly sweet drinks she usually grabbed at the convenience store. "Same time Wednesday?" he asked. I'll be here." As she drove to work, Zara realized she was looking forward to Wednesday more than she probably should be. Will was easy to talk to, driven, and seemed genuinely interested in the charity and in running. The fact that he was attractive was just an inconvenient detail she would have to ignore. Men like William Patterson didn't date women like her. They dated socialites and executives and women who wore heels and designer dresses. But Wednesday came, and then Friday, and with each run, Zara found herself learning more about the man behind the millionaire persona. He told her about growing up with a father who worked 18-hour days, and a mother whose heart condition kept her from doing many physical activities, which is why Will had become so passionate about fitness. He talked about his younger brother who taught high school mathematics and refused to work in the family business, something their father still hadn't fully accepted. He admitted that he was terrible at cooking despite owning a company that made high-end kitchen equipment, and that he survived mostly on takeout and protein shakes. Zara shared stories about her chaotic family dinners with her parents, two brothers, and Emma. She told him about the time she accidentally used salt instead of sugar in a wedding cake and had to remake the entire thing in 4 hours. She confessed that she was terrified of heights but loved roller coasters, which made no logical sense. And she talked about how scared she had been when Emma got sick, how helpless she had felt. "That's why this race matters so much to me," she said during their second week of training. "The foundation gave my family hope when we felt like we were drowning. I want to give that back to other families." Will looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You're pretty remarkable, you know that." Zara felt her cheeks flush. "I'm just running a race." "No, you're doing a lot more than that." The training runs became the highlight of Zara's week. She found herself thinking about things Will had said during their runs while she kneaded dough at work. She caught herself smiling when his name appeared on her phone screen with updates about his training times or articles about running he thought she might find interesting. 3 weeks before the race, they decided to do a longer practice run on Saturday morning, 12 miles to simulate most of the race distance. Zara arrived at the trail to find Will with a small cooler and a backpack. "I brought real food for after," he announced. "I figured we'd be too tired to think about breakfast, and there's a picnic area about half a mile from the parking lot." The 12 miles were challenging but exhilarating. They pushed each other, calling out encouragement when one of them started to flag. Around mile 8, Zara's knee started bothering her and Will immediately noticed her slight limp. "We can slow down," he said. "I'm fine. Just a little twinge." "Zara, this is practice. There's no prize for pushing through an injury." His concern was touching, and she reluctantly agreed to ease their pace. By the time they finished, her knee felt better, but she was exhausted. They walked to the picnic area, where Will unpacked an impressive breakfast spread from the cooler. "Did you make all this?" Zara asked, looking at the fresh fruit, bagels, cream cheese, and what looked like homemade energy bars. "God, no. I told you I can't cook. I had my assistant pick it up from a catering company. But I did cut the fruit myself this morning, so I get partial credit." She laughed, biting into a strawberry. They sat at the picnic table, the morning sun now warm on their faces, and talked for over an hour. Other runners and park-goers passed by, and Zara wondered what they saw. 2 people in sweaty running clothes, sitting close together, laughing like old friends. "Can I ask you something?" Will said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Sure." "Why aren't you wearing a ring?" Zara blinked, confused. "What? I mean, why isn't someone like you already taken? You're smart, passionate, talented, beautiful. I figured there must be someone." Her heart hammered in her chest. "There's no one. I dated someone for a while last year, but it didn't work out. He wanted me to be available all the time, but my schedule at the bakery is crazy. Early mornings, weekends, holidays. He said I cared more about bread than about him. Then he was an idiot, Will said simply. Your passion for your work is part of what makes you who you are. What about you? Zara asked, trying to keep her voice casual. I'm sure you have someone. No, I've dated, but nothing serious in a couple years. Most women I meet through business or social events are more interested in the company and the money than in me. And I work too much, according to basically everyone in my life. Do you? Work too much, I mean. He considered this. Probably. But lately, I've been finding excuses to leave the office on time, or to skip breakfast meetings. It's been nice. Their eyes met, and Zara felt something electric pass between them. She wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to know if he felt this pull too, but fear held her back. What if she was misreading everything? What if he was just being friendly, and she was building it into something more because she wanted it to be? The week before the race, their training schedule shifted to lighter runs to let their bodies rest. Wednesday morning, as they finished an easy 3 miles, Will hesitated before getting into his car. Hey, this might be out of line, but would you want to grab dinner sometime? Not as sponsor and runner, just as two people who enjoy each other's company. Zara's pulse skyrocketed. Like a date. Yeah, like a date, if you're interested. No pressure if you're not. She couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. I'd like that. Friday night. I know a place that's quiet, good food, nothing too fancy. Friday's perfect. Zara spent the next 2 days in a happy daze. Her coworkers at the bakery noticed immediately. You're humming, her assistant Marcus pointed out on Thursday afternoon. You never hum. What's going on? Nothing. I'm just in a good mood. This is about that sponsor guy, isn't it? The hot millionaire you've been running with every morning. Zara nearly dropped the tray of scones she was holding. How do you know about him? You've mentioned him approximately 700 times in the past 3 weeks. And you check your phone constantly now, which you never used to do. Plus, you're literally glowing. So spill. She told him about the dinner invitation, and Marcus actually squealed with excitement. This is like a romance movie. The humble baker and the wealthy CEO fall in love over marathon training. We're not falling in love. It's just dinner. Sure, and I'm just a casual baker, not someone who's been perfecting his croissant recipe for 5 years. Honey, this is definitely something. Friday evening, Zara stood in front of her closet in mild panic. What did one wear to dinner with a millionaire who had seen you exclusively in sweaty running clothes? She finally settled on a deep blue dress that was nice without being too formal, paired with low heels and simple jewelry. When Will picked her up, she almost didn't recognize him in dark jeans and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked incredible, more relaxed than she had ever seen him. You look beautiful, he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her stomach flutter. You clean up pretty well yourself. The restaurant was a small Italian place with dim lighting and intimate booths. Will had reserved a corner table, and they settled in with glasses of wine and menus they barely glanced at because they were too busy talking. Tell me something I don't know about you, Will said after they ordered. That's a dangerous question. I might tell you something weird and you'll regret asking. I'll take that risk. All right. I'm terrified of birds. Not like birds in the distance, but if one gets too close, I completely freeze up. I got dive-bombed by a goose when I was 7 and I've never recovered. Will laughed, a deep, genuine sound that made her laugh too. That's actually adorable. Okay, my turn, I can juggle. What, really? Learned it in college. My roommate was in the circus club and he taught me. I'm not good enough for any actual performance, but I can keep 3 balls going for a decent amount of time. I need to see this someday. Careful what you wish for. Dinner stretched into 3 hours. They talked about everything and nothing, dreams and fears, embarrassing moments and proud achievements. Zara learned that Will played piano, that he had a scar on his shoulder from a skiing accident in his 20s, and that he secretly loved trashy reality TV shows, but would never admit it to his business associates. Will learned that Zara wanted to open her own bakery someday, that she had a small scar on her chin from falling off her bike as a kid, and that she cried during sad commercials, but held it together during actual crises. When he drove her home, he walked her to her door like a gentleman. The street was quiet, just the two of them under the glow of the street lamp. "I had a really great time tonight," Will said. "Me too." He stepped closer and Zara's breath caught. "Can I kiss you?" She answered by closing the distance between them, and when his lips met hers, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. "Good night, Zara." "Good night, Will." She watched him drive away, her heart full and her mind racing. This was really happening. Whatever this was, it was real and wonderful and terrifying all at once. The next morning they met for their final training run before race day. The energy between them had shifted, charged with something new and exciting. They ran side by side, and every accidental brush of hands felt electric. "I was thinking," Will said as they cooled down, "after the race on Sunday, assuming we survive it, would you want to come to my place for lunch? I can't cook, but I can order amazing takeout, and I have a great view of the city from my balcony." "That sounds perfect." Race day arrived with perfect weather, cool enough for running but sunny and clear. Zara met Will at the starting area, both of them wearing their official race bibs and matching heart-to-heart foundation shirts. The energy was incredible. Thousands of runners gathered together for a cause that mattered. "Ready for this?" Will asked, adjusting his running belt. "I've been ready for months. Let's do this." The starting horn sounded and they were off. The first few miles were crowded, runners jockeying for position, but eventually they found their rhythm. True to their training, they maintained a steady pace, not too fast, not too slow. They passed aid stations together, grabbed water in sync, and encouraged each other when the miles started to drag. Around mile 7, Zara started to feel the fatigue setting in. Her legs were heavy and her breathing was labored. Will noticed immediately. "You've got this," he said. "Remember why we're here. Think about Emma, about all the other families the foundation helps." She nodded, digging deep for reserves of strength. "Tell me something, distract me." "Okay, I've been thinking about opening a second facility, expanding the company. But I've also been thinking about what it would mean to have a better work-life balance. To have time for things that matter." "Like what?" she asked, focusing on his voice rather than her burning legs. "Like running with someone I care about. Like getting to know an amazing woman who bakes the best bread in the city and has a smile that makes everything better." Zara looked at him, and despite her exhaustion, she felt a surge of joy. "Keep talking like that, and I might actually finish this race." They pushed through miles 8, 9, and 10. The crowd support was incredible, people lining the streets cheering and holding signs. Zara saw her family near mile 11, and Emma was jumping up and down screaming her name. Will waved at them, and Zara felt tears prick her eyes at the sight of her little sister looking so healthy and happy. The final mile was brutal. Every step hurt, but Will was right there beside her, matching her pace, refusing to leave her side even though she knew he could have finished faster without her. "Together," he said as the finish line came into view. "We crossed together." They sprinted the last 100 yards, hand in hand, crossing the finish line in tandem as the crowd erupted in cheers. Volunteers immediately wrapped them in foil blankets and handed them water bottles. Zara bent over, hands on her knees trying to catch her breath. When she straightened up, Will was there with the biggest smile on his face. "We did it," she said. "You did it. I was just along for the run. Don't sell yourself short. I couldn't have done this without you." He reached up and brushed a strand of sweaty hair from her face. "For what it's worth, I'm glad I got paired with you. Best decision the foundation ever made." After they collected their medals and took the obligatory photos for the foundation's website, Zara's family descended on them. Her mother hugged her, her father clapped her on the back, and her brothers gave her playful shoves. Emma launched herself at Zara with so much force they almost fell over. "You were amazing," Emma squealed. "I want to do this someday." "You will," Zara promised. "I know you will." Her mother turned to Will with a knowing smile. "You must be the sponsor we've heard so much about." "Mom," Zara said, mortified. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Kelly," Will said smoothly, shaking her hand. "Your daughter is incredible. I'm lucky I got to run with her." Zara's father assessed Will with the protective eye of a man with daughters. "Patterson Industries, right? I worked on one of your construction projects about 10 years ago, building contractors." "That's right. You helped build our distribution center. Good company. Treated workers fairly, paid on time. I respect that." Will nodded his thanks, and Zara could see her father's approval, which meant more than he knew. After saying goodbye to her family, Will and Zara made their way to the parking lot. Every muscle in Zara's body ached, but she felt euphoric. "Still up for lunch at my place?" Will asked. "Or are you too exhausted?" "I'm definitely coming, but I need to shower and change first. I'm disgusting." "You're beautiful," he said simply. "But yes, go home and clean up. I'll text you my address." An hour later, Zara pulled up to an upscale apartment building downtown, the kind with a doorman and probably marble floors in the lobby. She suddenly felt out of place in her jeans and casual sweater, but the doorman greeted her warmly when she mentioned Will's name and directed her to the elevator. Will's apartment was on the top floor, and when he opened the door, Zara tried not to let her jaw drop. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The space was modern and clean, decorated in neutral tones with pops of color from artwork on the walls. It was the kind of place she saw in magazines, not the kind of place she ever imagined herself being invited to. "This is incredible," she said, walking to the windows. "Thanks. I bought it 3 years ago. It's probably too big for one person, but I fell in love with the view." He had ordered Thai food and they ate on his balcony, the autumn sun warm on their faces. The conversation flowed easily, just like it had during their runs and at dinner. But now there was an added layer of intimacy, a comfort that came from having accomplished something significant together. "Can I tell you something?" Zara said, setting down her fork. "When I first got the call that I had been paired with a sponsor, I was nervous. I thought you'd be this stuffy businessman who was only doing it for the tax write-off or the publicity. And now I think you're one of the most genuine people I've met. You didn't have to actually train with me. You could have just shown up on race day for photos and called it good, but you were there every morning pushing me, supporting me. That meant more than the money." Will reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm going to be honest with you. When Rebecca told me about the sponsorship program, I almost said no. I've been so consumed with work that the idea of adding something else to my schedule felt overwhelming. But then I read your essay about Emma, and something about your story spoke to me. I wanted to help. And then I met you, and everything changed." "Changed how?" "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. These past few weeks, waking up at 5 in the morning to run became the best part of my day. Not because of the exercise, but because I got to spend time with you. You're smart and funny and kind, and you're passionate about things that matter. You make me want to be better." Zara felt her heart expanding in her chest. "I feel the same way. I kept telling myself it was crazy, that we were from completely different worlds, but I couldn't help it. Different worlds doesn't matter if two people care about each other. Do you? Care about me, I mean. Zara, I'm falling for you. Hard. I think I have been since that first morning at the river trail." She stood up and walked around the table, and he stood to meet her. When she kissed him, it was different from the sweet goodnight kiss on her doorstep. This kiss was deeper, full of all the feelings they had been building over weeks of early mornings and shared miles. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, and she melted into him. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Will rested his forehead against hers. "Stay. Spend the afternoon with me. We can watch a movie or just talk or sit in comfortable silence. I don't care, I just want you here." "Okay," she whispered. They ended up on his couch, Zara curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders. They put on a movie but barely watched it, too busy talking and stealing kisses, and learning the comfortable intimacy of being close to someone you care about. At some point, the exhaustion from the race caught up with them, and they both dozed off, tangled together on the couch. When Zara woke, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Will was still asleep, his face peaceful and relaxed in a way she had never seen. She carefully extracted herself and walked to the windows, looking out at the city below. This was crazy, wasn't it? A month ago, she had been just a baker with a simple life and clear goals. Now she was in a millionaire's apartment, falling in love with a man who should have been completely out of her league. But somehow it didn't feel crazy. It felt right. "Hey," Will's sleepy voice came from behind her. "What are you thinking about? How quickly things can change. How one phone call can redirect your entire life." He came to stand beside her, slipping his hand into hers. "Are you okay with how things have changed?" "I'm more than okay. I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Good, because I have a question for you." "What's that?" "Will you have dinner with me tomorrow night? And then breakfast the next morning and lunch after that, and every meal you're willing to share with me for the foreseeable future?" Zara laughed, turning to face him. "That's a lot of meals. I know. But I don't want this to be just a charity race thing that fades away now that it's over. I want to really see where this goes. I want to take you on dates and meet your family properly and introduce you to my friends. I want to integrate our lives, not keep this separate." "What about the whole different worlds thing? Your business associates and social circles, they're not going to understand you dating a baker. Then they don't have to be part of my life." "Zara, I've spent years doing what was expected of me, maintaining the right image, networking with the right people. I'm tired of it. I want something real. You're real." "This is moving fast," she said, but there was no hesitation in her voice. "We can slow down if you want." "But I'm 32 years old and I know what I want. I want you. I want you too. And yes, to all the meals and dates and meeting people properly. Yes to all of it." They sealed the agreement with a kiss as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing them in the last golden light of the day. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of juggling schedules and stolen moments. Will would stop by the bakery in the mornings after his runs, and Zara would save him a fresh cinnamon roll and coffee. They had dinner together at least 3 times a week, exploring different restaurants or ordering takeout to one of their apartments. Weekends became sacred, time blocked off exclusively for each other. Zara met Will's brother, Nathan, at a casual lunch. He was warm and funny, immediately putting her at ease with stories about Will's awkward teenage years. Nathan's wife, Sophie, was a high school counselor, and she and Zara bonded over their shared passion for helping young people. "You're good for him," Nathan told Zara when Will and Sophie went to grab dessert from the counter. "I haven't seen my brother this relaxed in years. He's always been so wound up in the company, in living up to Dad's expectations. But lately, he seems lighter." "He's good for me too," Zara admitted. "He makes me think bigger, dream beyond just getting through the day-to-day." Will's parents were a different story. His father, William S.R., was intimidating, a self-made man who had built an empire from nothing and expected excellence from everyone around him. His mother, Patricia, was elegant and gracious but clearly protective of her older son. The dinner at their house was formal, held in a dining room that could seat 20 people. Zara wore her nicest dress and tried not to be overwhelmed by the obvious wealth surrounding her. "So you're a baker," William S.R. said, making it sound like she collected trash for a living. "Yes, sir. I'm the head baker at Sweet Morning on Maple Street." "And what are your long-term career goals? Do you intend to remain an employee, or do you have ambitions beyond that?" Zara felt Will tense beside her, but she kept her voice steady. "I hope to open my own bakery someday. I've been saving and developing business plans. It's a competitive industry, but I believe I have what it takes. Entrepreneurship requires significant capital investment." "Do you have backing, Dad?" Will said, his voice tight with warning. "I'm just getting to know your girlfriend, son." "These are reasonable questions." "They're rude questions," Patricia interjected smoothly. "Zara, dear, tell me about your family. William mentioned your sister had surgery earlier this year." The rest of dinner went more smoothly, thanks to Patricia's expert navigation of conversation topics. But as they left, Zara could feel the weight of William S.R.'s disapproval. "I'm sorry," Will said as they drove back to her apartment. "My father can be difficult. He doesn't think I'm good enough for you." "That's not true. Will, come on. I could see it on his face. I'm not part of your world, and he knows it." Will pulled over into an empty parking lot and turned to face her. "Listen to me. I don't care what my father thinks about my personal life. I love him, and I respect him in business, but he doesn't get a vote in who I date or who I care about. The only opinions that matter are yours and mine." You say that now, but what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize how much easier it would be to be with someone from your own background? Zara, you're not a novelty. You're the person I want to talk to when something good happens at work. You're who I think about when I'm sitting in boring meetings. You're the reason I actually look forward to waking up in the morning. That's not going to wear off." She wanted to believe him, but doubt had planted itself in her mind. Over the next week, she found herself pulling back slightly, protecting her heart from the inevitable hurt she was sure was coming. Will noticed, of course. He always noticed. "What's going on?" he asked one evening at her apartment. They had ordered pizza and were supposed to be watching a movie, but the tension between them was palpable. "Nothing. I'm just tired." "Don't do that. Don't shut me out. Talk to me." Zara paused the movie and turned to face him. "I'm scared, okay? I'm scared that this is too good to be true. That eventually you're going to realize your dad was right, and I'm just going to be the girl you dated for a few months before you moved on to someone more appropriate." "Why would you think that?" "Because it makes sense. Will, you're a millionaire CEO. You have responsibilities and a reputation and a whole life that I can't even comprehend. I bake bread for a living. We're from completely different worlds." "So you've said. Multiple times. But Zara, different backgrounds doesn't mean we're incompatible. It means we bring different perspectives and experiences to the relationship. That's a good thing. Is it? Or is it just a complication that will eventually tear us apart?" Will was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was intense. "Do you want to be with me? Not in some theoretical future where all the complications are resolved, but right now, today, do you want to be with me?" "Yes." Then stop borrowing trouble from the future. We'll figure things out as we go. That's what couples do. They face challenges together. But what if? No what ifs. I'm all in, Zara. The question is, are you? She looked at him, at this man who had somehow become essential to her happiness in such a short time, and made a choice. I'm all in. The kiss they shared was a promise, a commitment to face whatever came together. 3 months into their relationship, Will invited Zara to a company gala. It was a black tie event, the kind of thing she had only seen in movies. She almost said no, intimidated by the idea of being thrust into his professional world, but Will's hopeful expression changed her mind. I want you there, he said. I want to show off my brilliant, beautiful girlfriend to everyone who matters to me. She bought a dress for the occasion, a deep emerald green gown that Marcus insisted made her look like a movie star. On the night of the gala, Will picked her up in a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and she had to remind herself to breathe. You look stunning, he said, his eyes sweeping over her with undisguised admiration. You don't look so bad yourself. The gala was held at a luxury hotel ballroom, decorated with thousands of twinkling lights and elaborate floral arrangements. Zara felt out of her depth the moment they walked in, surrounded by women in designer gowns and men discussing mergers and stock prices. But Will never left her side. He introduced her to colleagues and business partners, always with pride in his voice. This is Zara Kelly, my girlfriend. She's an incredible baker and the reason I actually smile these days. Some people were genuinely warm and welcoming. Others were clearly skeptical, their eyes taking in her off-the-rack dress and simple jewelry with barely concealed judgment. But Will didn't seem to notice or care when they danced, his hand firm on her waist. The rest of the room faded away. Thank you for coming tonight, he murmured against her ear. Thank you for inviting me, even though I'm pretty sure half the room is wondering what you're doing with me. Then half the room is full of idiots. You're the most interesting person here. Later in the evening, Zara excused herself to the restroom. In the lounge area, she overheard 2 women talking, their voices carrying over the sound of running water. Did you see William Patterson's date? Where did he find her? I heard she's a baker or something. Not exactly his usual type. It won't last. These things never do. He'll come to his senses and realize he needs someone from his own world. Zara stood frozen in the stall, their words confirming all her worst fears. When she finally emerged, the women were gone, but their assessment lingered. She tried to hide her upset from Will, but in the car ride home he pulled it out of her. I heard some women talking in the bathroom, she admitted. They said we won't last, that you'll come to your senses eventually. Will's jaw tightened. Did they say their names? It doesn't matter who they were. The point is they're probably right. They're not right. They're jealous and small-minded. He pulled the car over again, making a habit of these serious parking lot conversations. Zara, I need you to stop listening to other people's opinions about our relationship. The only people who matter in this relationship are us. Do you think we should be together? Yes, but no buts. Yes or no, do you want to be with me? Yes. Do you believe I want to be with you? I think so. That's not good enough. I need you to know it to believe it completely. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not waiting to come to my senses. I'm already exactly where I want to be. Zara felt tears pricking her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm being ridiculous. You're not being ridiculous. You're being human. But you need to trust me, trust us, or this won't work. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. I'll try, I promise I'll try. The holidays approached, and with them came decisions about how to navigate the season as a couple. Will's family had elaborate Christmas plans, including a week-long trip to their cabin in Aspen. Zara's family had their traditional chaotic Christmas Eve dinner followed by a quiet Christmas morning. Come to Aspen with me, Will said one evening in early December. They were at his apartment, decorating the small tree he had bought specifically because Zara mentioned loving Christmas trees. I can't. My family is expecting me for Christmas Eve, and I can't miss that. It's our tradition. Then I'll come to your family's Christmas Eve dinner, and we'll fly to Aspen on Christmas Day. My family will still be there through New Year's. Will, you don't have to skip your family's plans for me. I want to. I want to experience your traditions and meet your whole family in a non-race setting. Unless you don't want me there. Of course I want you there. But meeting my whole family is intense. My grandmother will interrogate you, my brothers will try to embarrass me with childhood stories, and Emma will probably talk your ear off about running. Sounds perfect. Christmas Eve at the Kelly house was exactly as advertised. Loud, chaotic, full of love and laughter. Zara's grandmother did indeed interrogate Will. But by the end of the evening, she was patting his hand and telling Zara not to let this one get away. Her brothers did embarrass her with stories about her awkward middle school years, but Will just laughed and shared some of his own embarrassing moments. And Emma did talk his ear off, showing him her training log and race medal collection. When they flew to Aspen on Christmas Day, Zara was nervous about spending a week with Will's family, but it turned out better than expected. Patricia was warm and welcoming, clearly having decided to accept Zara despite her initial reservations. Nathan and Sophie were there with their 2 kids, and the chaos of children helped break the ice. Even William Sr. thawed slightly, engaging Zara in a surprisingly pleasant conversation about business planning for her future bakery. On New Year's Eve, Will took Zara to a quiet spot away from the cabin where the stars were brilliant against the black sky. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small wrapped box from his pocket. Zara's heart stuttered. The box was too big to be a ring, but still her mind raced. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small charm, a tiny running shoe with their race date engraved on the bottom. Will, this is beautiful. I wanted you to have something to remember where this all started, the day you ran into my life and changed everything. She turned so he could clasp it around her neck, the charm settling perfectly at her collarbone. Thank you, I love it. There's something else. He took her hands in his. I know we've only been together a few months and I'm not trying to rush things. But I want you to know that this is it for me. You're it for me. I love you, Zara. Zara felt tears spilling down her cheeks. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Don't be scared, just be here with me. As fireworks from a nearby resort lit up the sky at midnight, they kissed, starting the new year wrapped in each other and the promise of a future together. The new year brought changes. In January, Zara was offered a promotion to manage the bakery, a position that came with more responsibility and better pay. She was torn, excited about the opportunity but worried about the increased hours interfering with time with Will. Take the promotion, Will said immediately when she told him. This is exactly the kind of experience you need if you want to open your own place someday. But it means earlier mornings and more evening meetings with vendors. We'll figure it out. Your career matters, Zara. I'd never ask you to sacrifice that for our relationship. In February, Will's company faced a crisis when a major client threatened to pull their contract over a manufacturing delay. He spent 3 weeks working 18-hour days, stressed and exhausted. Zara showed up at his office late one night with homemade soup and bread, finding him hunched over his desk surrounded by paperwork. You need to eat, she said, setting the food in front of him. I need to fix this disaster. You need to eat, take a break, and then fix the disaster with a clear head. You're no good to anyone if you run yourself into the ground. She stayed while he ate, not saying much, just being present. When he finally leaned back in his chair, some of the tension had left his shoulders. "Thank you," he said, "for being here, for understanding that sometimes work has to come first for a while. That's what partners do. We support each other." He pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful every day." By March, they had found their rhythm as a couple. They had date nights sacrosanct on their calendars, regular runs together on weekends, and quiet evenings at home that were just as satisfying as fancy dinners out. They had keys to each other's apartments and toothbrushes in each other's bathrooms. They talked about the future in concrete terms, not hypotheticals. One Saturday morning in April, almost exactly a year after they had first met for training, Will suggested they run the river trail where it all started. It was a gorgeous spring day, the trees budding with new growth, the river sparkling in the sunlight. They ran their usual route, the familiar path bringing back memories of those early morning training sessions. When they reached the spot where they usually turned back, Will slowed to a stop. "This is where I first realized I was in trouble," he said. "What do you mean?" "It was our third or fourth run together. You were telling me some story about a cake disaster at the bakery, and the sun was just coming up behind you, and you were laughing, and I thought, I could listen to this woman tell stories for the rest of my life. That's when I knew you were going to be important to me." Zara smiled at the memory. "I remember that day. You had told me about your brother refusing to join the family business, and I thought you were brave for supporting his choice instead of pressuring him. We've come a long way since then. We have." Will took both her hands, and Zara's heart started racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the run. "Zara Kelly, this past year has been the best year of my life. You've challenged me, supported me, loved me, and made me want to be better. You've taught me that success isn't just about business achievements, it's about building a life worth living. I can't imagine my future without you in it." He dropped to one knee right there on the running trail, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a beautiful ring, simple and elegant, with a single diamond that caught the morning light. "Will you marry me?" Zara was crying before she could even process the question. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. They stayed there, wrapped in each other, as other runners passed by with congratulations and well wishes. "We're going to have to actually cross that finish line together now," Zara said through happy tears. "Every finish line for the rest of our lives," Will agreed. The engagement brought a whirlwind of activity. They decided on a fall wedding, wanting something intimate and meaningful rather than a huge society event. Patricia tried to convince them to have a large wedding at the country club, but Will stood firm. "This is our wedding, Mom. We want something that represents us." They chose a small vineyard outside the city, a place with rolling hills and stunning views. The guest list was limited to close family and friends. Zara's grandmother cried when they asked her to bake the wedding cake, insisting it would be her masterpiece. In June, an opportunity arose that neither of them had anticipated. A bakery space became available in a trendy neighborhood, perfect for Zara's dream of opening her own place. The problem was the timing, so close to the wedding, and the cost, which was more than her savings could cover. "We should wait," Zara said when Will suggested they go look at the space. "Maybe something will open up after the wedding. Or we could look at it now and not miss an opportunity. Come on, what's the harm in looking?" The space was perfect. Large windows, good foot traffic, enough room for a kitchen and a small seating area. Zara could envision exactly how it would look, but the price tag made her stomach drop. "I can't afford this," she said quietly. "We can afford this," Will corrected gently. "Will, we're not even married yet. I can't ask you to invest in my business." "You're not asking, I'm offering. Think of it as an investment in our future. You've been dreaming of your own bakery for years. Why wait? Because it's a huge financial risk. What if it fails? What if it succeeds?" "Zara, you're one of the most talented bakers I know. You have business sense and creativity and the work ethic to make this happen. I believe in you." They talked for hours, weighing pros and cons, discussing business plans and timelines. In the end, they decided to make an offer on the space, with Will as a silent partner. Zara would run every aspect of the business, but they would own it together. "We're building a life together," Will said as they signed the initial paperwork. "That includes supporting each other's dreams." The next few months were hectic. Zara balanced her job at Sweet Morning with planning for her new bakery. Will helped with the business side, connecting her with contractors and accountants and lawyers. They planned their wedding in stolen moments between meetings and construction updates. In September, 1 month before the wedding, Zara's bakery officially opened. The name was simple, but it was hers. The opening day was overwhelming, a line out the door from morning until they sold out in the afternoon. Emma helped behind the counter, Will handled the register, and Marcus came on board as Zara's assistant manager. The local newspaper did a feature article, highlighting both the bakery and the love story behind it. "From charity run to charity race to the altar," the headline read, with a photo of Zara and Will at their first race, hands clasped as they crossed the finish line. The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather. Zara wore a simple but elegant dress, her hair loose in soft waves. Will wore a dark suit, and when he turned to see her walking down the aisle on her father's arm, his eyes filled with tears. The ceremony was short and sweet, personalized with readings from Nathan and Emma. When they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in attendance. "I promise to run beside you through every challenge and celebrate every victory," Will said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to support your dreams and build new ones together. I promise to love you with everything I am, for all the days of my life." "I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word," Zara said, squeezing his hands. "I promise to challenge you and support you and never let you forget that you're more than your accomplishments. I promise to love you fiercely, honestly, and completely, forever." When they kissed as husband and wife, the small crowd erupted in applause. The reception was joyful and relaxed, full of good food, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. William S.R. even stood up and admitted that he had been wrong about Zara, that she was exactly what his son needed. As they danced their first dance as a married couple, Zara looked up at her husband and felt overwhelming gratitude for that phone call 1 year ago. "What are you thinking about?" Will asked. "How lucky I am. How one phone call changed everything." "I'm the lucky one. You took a chance on a stranger who wanted to run beside you. And you never wanted to stop." "Never," he agreed, pulling her closer. "Never going to stop loving you, Zara Patterson." Zara Patterson. She was still getting used to the name, but she loved how it sounded. 2 years after their wedding, Zara's bakery had expanded to include a small cafe section. Emma worked there part-time while finishing high school, already planning to study nutrition in college. Marcus had become a partner in the business, and they were considering opening a second location. Will had restructured his role at Patterson Industries, promoting a trusted colleague to handle day-to-day operations while he focused on strategic planning and development. It meant more reasonable hours and time for what mattered most: his marriage, his family, and the life he had built with Zara. On a Saturday morning in early spring, they returned to the river trail for their regular weekend run. But this time, there was a new addition: a jogging stroller with their 6-month-old daughter, Lily, strapped in and enjoying the ride. Thinks she'll be a runner like her parents? Zara asked as they set an easy pace. Probably. Or she'll rebel and become a chess champion. Either way, we'll support her. They ran in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of running together, of building a life side by side. When they reached the spot where Will had proposed, they stopped to catch their breath and check on Lily, who had fallen asleep. "Remember when I told you that I could listen to you tell stories for the rest of my life?" Will said, looking at his wife with the same love and admiration he'd felt that morning years ago. "I remember. Best decision I ever made falling for you. Best race I ever ran." Zara leaned in to kiss him, careful not to jostle the stroller. "Best partnership I ever formed." "You know, the foundation called me last week. They want to know if we'll be sponsors for this year's race." "Of course. Think we should actually run it or just sponsor?" "Both. We need to set a good example for Lily. Show her what it means to give back, to work hard, to never give up." "Then we'll run it together, just like always." As they continued down the trail, the early morning sun painting everything in gold, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From strangers paired by chance to partners in every sense of the word. From a single charity race to a lifetime of running side by side. Will reached over and squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back, a silent conversation that needed no words. They had built something beautiful together, a marriage, a family, businesses they were proud of, and a love that had been tested and proven true. The trail stretched ahead of them, winding through trees and alongside the river, full of possibilities and promise. And they ran it together, just as they always would, partners in every mile, every moment, every adventure yet to come. Behind them, the city was waking up, people starting their days, pursuing their own dreams and challenges. But for Will and Zara Patterson, pushing a stroller along their favorite trail, this moment was perfect. This life they had created was exactly what they both had needed, even before they knew to look for it. One charity race had paired her with a sponsor, and that millionaire had run beside her and never wanted to stop. Now they would run forward together, through all the races and challenges and joys that life would bring, hand in hand, stride for stride, forever. The finish line was no longer a destination, but a series of moments, victories big and small, shared with the person who mattered most. And that, Zara thought as Lily stirred and made happy baby sounds, was the greatest prize of all. They completed their loop and headed back to the car, already making plans for the rest of their day, their week, their life. Coffee and pancakes at home, a lazy afternoon at the park, dinner with family. Simple things that made up a rich, full life. As Will loaded the stroller into the car and Zara buckled Lily into her car seat, they exchanged a smile that held years of history and decades of future. The charity run had been just the beginning. The real race was this: building a life worth living, loving someone with everything you had, and never stopping, never giving up, never letting go. And they had won that race together, were still winning it every single day.